My name is Robert Hayes, 45 years old, with hands that tell the story of every beam I've lifted, every foundation I've poured. 2 decades in construction management will do that to you. Weathered skin, calloused palms, shoulders that carry more than just physical weight. I run a site on the outskirts of town, overseeing crews, managing timelines, making sure buildings rise on schedule and under budget. It's honest work, the kind that doesn't apologize for existing. I met Laura at a charity fundraiser 18 years ago. I remember the gymnasium smell mixed with fresh coffee, folding tables laden with donated baked goods, and her standing by the refreshment station in a yellow volunteer t-shirt, handing out water bottles with a smile that could disarm a cynic. She was 23 then, all brightness and energy, the kind of woman who made you believe in goodness just by proximity. I was 27, already climbing the ladder at Brennan Construction, ambitious but grounded. We talked for 3 hours that day. She laughed at my terrible jokes about load-bearing walls. I walked away with her number and a feeling I hadn't experienced before: certainty. We married a year later. Nothing extravagant. 50 guests, a rented hall, flowers Laura arranged herself because she wanted it personal. Her parents approved of me. Stable job, no vices, respectful. My mother cried during the vows. It felt right, simple, real. Children never came. Laura said she wasn't ready at first, wanted to enjoy being married, wanted to travel. We took a few trips, Myrtle Beach, Nashville, once to Colorado. But the traveling tapered off, and the conversation about kids shifted from not yet to maybe my health isn't suited for it. She mentioned hormonal issues, irregular cycles, doctors who gave vague advice. I didn't push. Marriage is compromise, I told myself. We had time. We had each other. That was supposed to be enough. For 17 years, our life followed a comfortable rhythm. Laura managed the house, grocery shopping, cleaning, organizing, handling bills. I worked 50 to 60-hour weeks, ensuring our modest 2-story home in the Birchwood neighborhood stayed paid off early, ensuring our savings account grew steadily. We weren't wealthy, but we were secure. Friday nights meant takeout and a movie. Saturdays she'd garden while I handled repairs. Sundays we'd sleep in, quiet, predictable, safe. Passion had faded somewhere along the way. I couldn't pinpoint when exactly. Infrequent became infrequent, mechanical when it happened. We stopped talking about dreams and started talking about groceries, but I didn't think that was unusual. People settle, relationships mature. I believed we were content. I believed she was happy. I believed wrong. 4 months ago, the shift started, subtle at first. Laura began criticizing me more, little things that had never bothered her before. I left a coffee mug on the counter. I tracked dirt from my boots onto the kitchen floor. I didn't ask enough questions at dinner. I zoned out when she talked about her day. Each complaint came with an edge, a sharpness that felt disproportionate to the offense. "Do you even care about this house, Robert?" She snapped one evening, holding up the offending mug like evidence at a trial. "I care," I said. "I've just had a long day." "You always have a long day," she shot back. I apologized. I tried to be more mindful. But the complaints didn't stop. They multiplied. I breathed too loud. I took up too much space on the couch. I didn't compliment her enough. The temperature in the house became Arctic. She stopped initiating any physical contact. No kisses goodbye. No hand-holding during movies. At night, she'd turn her back to me in bed, creating an invisible barrier down the center of the mattress. When I tried to address it directly, she deflected. "Are we okay?" I asked one Saturday morning over breakfast. "We're fine," she said without looking up from her phone. "You seem distant," I pressed. "I'm just stressed, Robert." "Don't overthink everything," she replied dismissively. But I was overthinking everything. Because my gut, that primal instinct that kept our ancestors alive, was screaming that something was wrong. The phone became her constant companion. She carried it everywhere. Bathroom, bedroom, kitchen. She angled the screen away whenever I walked past. She'd get texts and her expression would shift, a quick smile, hastily hidden. She started locking the bedroom door when she was inside, claiming she needed privacy. She showered more often, sometimes twice a day. She bought new clothes, wore makeup on random weekdays when she used to only bother for special occasions. One evening, I walked into the living room and she was laughing at something on her screen. A genuine, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard directed at anything I'd said in months. The moment she saw me, the laugh died. She locked her phone and set it face down on the cushion. "What's funny?" I asked. "Nothing." "Just a meme," she answered quickly. "Can I see?" I pressed. Her jaw tightened. "It's stupid." "You wouldn't get it," she said with an edge in her voice. "That night, I couldn't sleep." I lay beside her in the darkness, listening to her breathe, wondering when this stranger had replaced my wife. The doubt coiled in my chest like barbed wire. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to believe stress, hormones, a midlife crisis, anything except the obvious, but instinct doesn't lie. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation without proof is just accusation, and accusation without evidence is just noise. Instead, I started paying closer attention. I noted when she texted, when she disappeared into the bathroom for 20-minute intervals, when her mood shifted from irritable to secretly pleased. I watched the way she looked at me, or rather, the way she looked through me, like I was an obstacle she was planning to remove. Something had changed. Someone had changed her, and I needed to know what I was dealing with before I made a move, because going into a fight blind is how you lose everything. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, the knot in my gut tightening with every passing hour. Laura's breathing was steady beside me, peaceful, oblivious, or worse, unconcerned. I didn't know what I'd find when I started digging. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Ignoring it would destroy me faster than the truth ever could. I couldn't function. 3 weeks of watching Laura drift further away. 3 weeks of second-guessing every instinct. 3 weeks of lying awake at 2 in the morning wondering if I was losing my mind. The uncertainty was acid in my veins. I needed answers. I needed proof. I called Matthew on a Tuesday afternoon from the construction site. Standing in the shadow of a half-finished medical complex, concrete dust coating my boots. "I need your help," I said when he picked up. "Matthew Reeves." We'd known each other since sophomore year of high school, survived terrible part-time jobs together, stood up at each other's weddings. He worked in security systems now, commercial installations mostly, but he knew residential inside and out. He was the kind of friend who didn't waste time with meaningless questions. "What's going on?" he asked. "I think Laura's cheating on me," I told him directly. Silence on the other end. Not judgment. Just processing. "You sure?" he finally asked. "No. That's why I need your help," I answered. "You want cameras?" he stated. "Yes," I confirmed. "When?" he asked. "Saturday morning." "She'll be out," I replied. "I'll be there at 9, he said without hesitation. That was Matthew. No drama, no lectures. Just loyalty. Saturday came. Laura mentioned needing to run errands, groceries, the bank, maybe browse the home goods store. She'd be gone at least 2 hours, possibly 3. I watched her pull out of the driveway in her silver Honda Accord, waited until she turned the corner, then called Matthew. He arrived 15 minutes later in his work van, carrying 2 cases of equipment. "We didn't waste time. Where do you want coverage?" he asked, setting the cases on the kitchen counter. "Everywhere. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, hallway. I want every angle," I told him. He nodded. "Audio too?" "Yes," I confirmed. "You understand this is legal, right? Your house, your property. But whatever you find, you handle it smart. Don't let emotion make you stupid," he warned. "I won't," I promised. He studied me for a moment, then clapped my shoulder. "Let's do this," he said. We worked fast. Matthew was efficient, professional. The cameras were small, no bigger than a shirt button, mounted in smoke detectors behind picture frames in the corner of shelves. Invisible unless you knew where to look. He installed 5 in total, 1 covering the living room from the bookshelf, 1 in the kitchen above the refrigerator, 1 in the bedroom tucked into the ceiling fan housing, 1 in the hallway near the bathroom, and 1 in the home office Laura rarely used, but I wanted covered anyway. "Audio's the tricky part," Matthew explained as he synced the system. "Video's straightforward, but audio can pick up everything: TV, street noise, the refrigerator humming. You'll need to scrub through it carefully." "I will," I assured him. He connected everything to an encrypted app on my phone, password protected, backed up to a secure cloud server only I could access. He walked me through the interface. how to view live feeds, how to review recorded footage, how to download clips. Everything's motion activated to save storage, he explained. But you can also set it to record continuously if you want. Continuous, I decided. I don't want to miss anything. He finished the setup by 11:30. Laura wouldn't be home for at least another hour. Matthew packed up his equipment, paused at the door. Brother, whatever you find, and I hope you find nothing, you call me if you need anything. Day or night, he said seriously. I know. Thanks, Matthew, I replied. He left. I stood in the empty house, surrounded by invisible eyes, and felt the weight of what I'd just done. This was surveillance. This was distrust made tangible. But it was also self-preservation. I wasn't going to be blindsided. Laura came home at 1:15 carrying grocery bags, humming something under her breath. She didn't notice anything different. Why would she? The house looked exactly the same, but everything had changed. The next few days were psychological torture. I went to work, managed my crews, reviewed blueprints, handled problems, all while knowing that every moment at home was being recorded. I watched Laura through the app during lunch breaks, sitting in my truck, feeling like a voyeur in my own marriage. She moved through the house normally. Made lunch, watched TV, folded laundry, nothing suspicious, until Tuesday evening. I came home from work at 6:30. Laura was in the kitchen reheating leftovers. I greeted her. She gave me a tight smile, said nothing. I sat down in the living room, exhausted from a day of dealing with a delayed concrete delivery. 10 minutes later, she started. You left a coffee mug on the counter this morning, she said sharply. I glanced at her. I was running late. I'll get it, I replied calmly. You're always running late. You're always leaving messes for me to clean up, she accused. Laura, it's one mug, I pointed out. Her voice sharpened. It's never just one thing with you, Robert. It's a pattern. You don't respect this house. You don't respect me, she said. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the frustration of an argument that had no rational foundation. I stood up, walked toward the bedroom, refusing to engage. Don't you walk away from me, she shouted. I closed the bedroom door behind me, sat on the edge of the bed, and rubbed my temples. I could hear her moving around, muttering to herself. Then, silence. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera app, and switched to the live feed. Laura was in the bathroom. Door locked, phone pressed to her ear. I turned up the volume on my earbuds. He's getting suspicious, she was saying, voice low but clear. He's watching me more. Asking questions. Silence as the other person responded. No, I'm handling it, Laura continued. It doesn't matter. We stick to the plan. A few more weeks and it's done. My blood turned to ice. I know, baby. I know. Just trust me. I've got this, she said softly. Baby? She ended the call, checked her reflection in the mirror, and walked out of the bathroom. Her expression was calm, satisfied. I sat there, earbuds still in, phone trembling in my hands. Plan. What plan? Over the next week, I became obsessed with the footage. I watched everything. I scrubbed through hours of recordings, isolating key moments. Laura on the phone, always in the bathroom or the bedroom, always speaking in that low, careful tone. I couldn't always make out the other voice clearly, but her words were enough. He won't see it coming. The lawyer said it's straightforward. I just need to make it believable. And then, the most chilling part, I caught her practicing. It was Thursday afternoon. I was at the site reviewing a delivery invoice when I checked the app during a break. Laura was alone in the bedroom, standing in front of the full-length mirror. She was making faces, sad, hurt, frightened. She'd shift from one expression to another, studying herself critically, adjusting her body language. Then she picked up a makeup compact. I watched, frozen, as she carefully applied shading to her left cheek, darkening it, creating the illusion of a bruise. She did the same to her upper arm, blending the makeup to make it look like finger marks. She stepped back, examined her work, and smiled. Not a happy smile. A satisfied smile. She was rehearsing. Rehearsing what? That night I couldn't eat. I sat across from Laura at the dinner table, moving food around my plate, my mind racing. She didn't notice. She was scrolling through her phone, half smiling at something. How was your day? I asked, testing. Fine. she said without looking up. Anything interesting happen? I pressed. Not really, she answered dismissively. She was lying. I knew she was lying, but I kept my expression neutral, my voice calm. Okay, let me know if you need anything, I said. I won't, she replied coldly. I went to bed that night knowing something terrible was coming. I just didn't know when. 2 days later, I found out. Wednesday, September 18th. I'll remember that date for the rest of my life. The day had been brutal. A supplier screwed up a steel beam order, sent I-beams instead of H-beams, setting us back 2 full days. I spent 4 hours on the phone, arguing with procurement, reworking the schedule, dealing with subcontractors who were pissed about the delay. By the time I got home at 6:45, I was exhausted, mentally drained. I just wanted silence. Laura was in the kitchen when I walked in, stirring something on the stove. Pasta from the smell. She didn't acknowledge me. Didn't turn around. I set my keys on the counter, loosened my boots, and walked into the living room. I collapsed onto the couch and turned on the TV, some home renovation show I wasn't really watching. My mind was still at the site, calculating delays, costs, contingency plans. You're home late again, she said from the kitchen doorway. I glanced toward her. Laura was standing there, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Same time as always, I said evenly. You never spend time with me anymore, she accused. I exhaled slowly, too tired for this. Laura, I've been working. You know that? I replied. You always have an excuse. Her voice was rising now, accusatory. Maybe you're spending time somewhere else. With someone else, she said. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Absurd, ridiculous, infuriating. I didn't respond. I'd learned that engaging only made it worse, fed the fire she seemed intent on starting. I stood up and walked toward the bedroom, needing space, needing separation before I said something I couldn't take back. Don't you walk away from me, she screamed. I shut the bedroom door behind me, sat on the edge of the bed, and pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. My head pounded. I could hear her moving around the house, muttering, slamming cabinet doors. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. Laura was in the bathroom again. Phone to her ear. Her expression was cold, focused, predatory. I couldn't hear the conversation clearly through the door, but I saw her nodding, saw her mouth moving rapidly. She ended the call, checked her reflection one more time, and walked out. The house went quiet. I thought maybe she'd calmed down. Maybe the storm had passed. Then the doorbell rang. My stomach dropped. I knew. Somehow in that instant, I knew. I opened the front door to 2 police officers. One was older, mid-50s, graying hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. The other was younger, maybe 30, rigid posture, hand resting near his belt. They weren't here for a noise complaint. Robert Hayes? The older one asked. Yes, I confirmed. We're responding to a domestic disturbance call. Your wife reported that you've been physically abusive. We need you to step outside, sir, he stated. The words didn't register at first. My brain couldn't process them. They sounded foreign, impossible. What? That's insane. I haven't touched her, I said. Sir, step outside. Now, the younger officer commanded. I'm telling you, this is... I started to protest. Laura appeared behind me. Tears streamed down her face. Bruises darkened her left cheek and upper arm, the same bruises I'd watched her apply with makeup days ago. Her hands trembled. Her voice broke. Please, she sobbed. Just take him. I can't do this anymore. I'm so afraid. She was good. Better than good. Oscar-worthy. The shaking hands, the broken sobs, the way she flinched when I turned toward her. Every detail perfect, calculated. Practiced? The younger officer's expression hardened immediately. The older one looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. Turn around, Mr. Hayes, the older officer ordered. I did. The handcuffs clicked cold and tight around my wrists. They walked me down the driveway, past neighbors who'd come out to watch, their faces a mix of shock and judgment. Laura stood in the doorway, watching. For a split second, our eyes met. Hers were empty. No tears, no fear. Just cold, calculating satisfaction. They put me in the back of the patrol car. I sat there, hands cuffed behind me, staring at the metal grate separating me from the officers, my mind racing. The cameras. The footage. It was all there. Everything she'd done. Everything she'd faked. Recorded. At the station, they processed me. Fingerprints, mugshot, personal belongings logged and bagged. They put me in a holding cell, a concrete box with a metal bench and a toilet that reeked of disinfectant. I sat there for 6 hours, staring at the wall, trying to control the rage building in my chest. I called Matthew from the station's phone at midnight. He answered on the second ring. "Matthew, I need you to bail me out," I said urgently. "What the hell happened?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Laura had me arrested. Domestic violence. It's all fake. I have proof. I need you to get me out so I can start fighting this," I explained. "I'm on my way," he said immediately. He posted bail an hour later. I walked out of that station at 1:30 in the morning, climbed into Matthew's truck, and told him everything. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment, then shook his head. "She's smart, but she's not smarter than video evidence. You need to call Lily White. Now," he advised. Lily White was a lawyer Matthew knew, divorce and criminal defense, sharp as a blade, no-nonsense reputation. I called her at 7 the next morning. She agreed to meet me at Matthew's place that afternoon. By then, I'd learned Laura had filed a restraining order. I couldn't go home. Couldn't access my own house. Couldn't retrieve my belongings. She'd effectively erased me from my own life in less than 24 hours. Lily arrived at 3. She was late 40s, sharp suit, cold eyes that assessed everything. She sat down across from Matthew and me, opened her laptop, and got straight to business. "Show me the footage," she instructed. I walked her through it, every clip. Laura applying the makeup. Laura on the phone discussing the plan. Laura rehearsing her expressions. The 911 call with her practiced, trembling voice. Lily watched without expression. When I finished, she leaned back and nodded slowly. "This is airtight. She staged everything. The bruises are makeup. The fear is acting. And you have her on audio discussing premeditation with who?" she asked. "Someone named Derek Mallory," I answered. She typed the name into her laptop. "I'll run a background check. If he's involved, he's going down with her," she stated firmly. 2 days later, Lily called me with an update. Derek Mallory, 36 years old, personal trainer at Peak Fitness on Riverside. 2 prior relationships that ended badly. Both women filed complaints claiming he was manipulative and financially opportunistic. Phone records show he and Laura have been in contact for 3 months. Frequent calls, late nights. "This isn't just infidelity, Robert. This is conspiracy to commit fraud," she explained. I felt nothing. No anger, no betrayal. Just cold clarity. "What's next?" I asked. "She's filed for divorce. Wants the house. 70% of the savings, spousal support, and half your pension. We're going to bury her," she said with quiet confidence. Living at Matthew's place felt surreal, like I'd been dropped into someone else's life. I slept on his couch, a lumpy sectional that smelled faintly of beer and old leather. I woke up to the sound of his coffee maker gurgling, ate cereal from mismatched bowls, and spent my days navigating a reality I didn't recognize. The restraining order meant I couldn't go near the house, couldn't drive down Birchwood Lane, couldn't retrieve my clothes, my tools, my personal documents. Laura had erased me from my own life with a single legal filing, but I didn't panic. I didn't rage. I stayed quiet. I followed Lily's instructions to the letter. Lily was methodical. We met every few days in her small office downtown, fluorescent lights humming overhead, stacks of case files lining the walls. She went through every second of footage, isolating key moments, creating a timeline, building an airtight narrative. "This is the most clear-cut case of fraud I've handled in 10 years, she said during one meeting, tapping her pen against the desk. "But we need to be thorough. Judges appreciate precision. Juries appreciate emotion. We'll give them both." She hired a forensic audio analyst to enhance the recordings, ensuring every word was crystal clear. She pulled phone records, credit card statements, security footage from Peak Fitness, showing Laura and Derek entering and leaving together. She interviewed neighbors, documented Laura's social media activity, tracked her movements. Meanwhile, Laura moved forward like a woman who'd already won. I heard through mutual acquaintances, people I'd known for years who suddenly treated me like a pariah. that she'd redecorated the bedroom, thrown out my clothes, donated my tools to Goodwill. She posted photos on Facebook, smiling in the living room, captions about new beginnings and finding my strength. She was playing the survivor card, painting herself as the brave woman who'd escaped an abusive marriage. Derek Mallory's background made me sick. Lily dug deep, 2 prior relationships, both ending badly. One ex-girlfriend claimed he'd isolated her from friends, convinced her to give him access to her bank accounts, then disappeared with $10,000. No charges filed because she couldn't prove it. The other ex described him as charming until he wasn't, claimed he'd manipulated her into covering his rent for 6 months before ghosting. He wasn't just Laura's lover. He was her co-conspirator, the one who'd helped her craft this plan. Phone records confirmed it. Messages between them going back 3 months. Derek: "You sure he won't suspect?" Laura: "He's clueless. Works all the time. Barely notices me." Derek: "When do we move?" Laura: "Soon. I need to set it up right. Make it believable." Derek: "How much are we talking?" Laura: "Enough for both of us to start over. Lily showed me the messages during one of our meetings. I read them twice, feeling nothing. Just cold calculation. They thought they were being careful," Lily said. "They weren't. The divorce filing was aggressive. Laura's lawyer, Gregory Hurst, a slick operator with a reputation for winning ugly, painted me as a controlling, abusive husband who'd financially isolated her. The narrative was detailed. Years of emotional manipulation, escalating to physical violence, a woman trapped in fear, finally finding the courage to escape. It was almost convincing, almost. We need to be prepared for her to pivot, Lily warned. She'll claim emotional distress. She'll say she was driven to desperation. Judges don't like surprises, but they hate being manipulated. We present the evidence cleanly, without theatrics. Let the footage speak for itself. I trusted her. I had no choice but to trust her. The waiting was the hardest part. Days bled into weeks. I went to work, kept my head down, avoided conversations. My co-workers knew something had happened. Whispers followed me across the site, but I didn't elaborate. Not yet. At night, alone on Matthew's couch, I watched the footage again. Not out of anger. Out of preparation. I memorized every detail, every inflection, every practice sob. I wanted to know her performance better than she did. Laura called me once during this period. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was sweet, almost apologetic. "Robert, I know things got out of hand. Maybe we can talk, work something out before court. I don't want this to get ugly. Call me." I played it for Lily. She laughed bitterly. She's scared. She knows the court date is coming and she's trying to control the narrative. "Don't respond," she advised. I didn't. 2 days before the hearing, Lily called. "Everything's in order. We're presenting the footage first thing. Her lawyer doesn't know what's coming. We're going to blindside them," she said confidently. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not satisfaction, not rage. Just clarity. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Laura thought she'd orchestrated the perfect crime. She thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across worn wooden benches. The air smelled like old paper and floor wax. I sat beside Lily at the defendant's table, hands folded, breathing steady. Across the aisle, Laura sat with Gregory Hurst, her lawyer. He was mid-50s, expensive suit, practiced confidence. Laura wore a modest, pale blue dress, hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked vulnerable, sympathetic, small. She glanced at me once, her expression carefully neutral, but I saw the satisfaction underneath. She thought this was a formality. She thought the restraining order, the police report, the bruises she'd shown the officers, she thought it was enough. Judge Marion Kepler entered. Silver hair, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. Lily had told me she was fair, thorough, not easily swayed by emotion. That worked in our favor. "All rise," the bailiff announced. We stood. Judge Kepler took her seat, reviewed the case file briefly, then looked up. "This is a hearing regarding a restraining order filed by Laura Hayes against Robert Hayes, as well as preliminary matters related to their divorce proceedings. Mr. Hurst, you may proceed," she stated. Hurst stood, smoothing his tie. He was good, polished. He presented Laura's case with practiced ease, years of alleged emotional abuse, escalating to physical violence, a woman trapped and afraid, finally finding the courage to leave. He introduced the police report, photos of Laura's bruises, the 911 call recording, character statements from acquaintances who claimed I was controlling and cold. It was a strong performance. Convincing. Then Lily stood. Your Honor, the defense would like to present video evidence that directly contradicts the plaintiff's claims, she announced. Hurst frowned. Your Honor, we weren't informed of any video evidence in discovery, he objected. Lily cut him off smoothly. The evidence was obtained legally from my client's own property, where he had every right to install security measures. We're providing it now in the interest of full transparency, she explained. Judge Kepler's eyes narrowed slightly. Proceed, she instructed. Lily set up the display screen. The courtroom fell silent. The first clip played. Laura in the bathroom, phone pressed to her ear, voice clear. He's getting suspicious, but it doesn't matter. We stick to the plan. A few more weeks, and it's done. Laura's face drained of color. The second clip. Laura in front of the bedroom mirror, practicing expressions. Sad. Hurt. Frightened. Then picking up a makeup compact, carefully applying shading to her arms and cheek, creating the illusion of bruises. She stepped back, examined her work, smiled with satisfaction. Hurst shifted in his seat. Laura stared at the screen, frozen. The third clip. Audio from the day before my arrest. Laura on the phone with Derek. It's happening tomorrow night. I'll start the fight, he'll walk away like he always does, and then I call. Make sure you're ready to back me up if they ask questions. The courtroom was silent. Lily played the 911 call next. Laura's voice trembling and afraid. Please, I need help. My husband, he's been hurting me. I'm afraid he'll do it again. But now, with the context of the footage, the performance was transparent. Hollow, calculated. Judge Kepler leaned forward. Ms. Hayes, do you have an explanation for this evidence? She asked directly. Hurst stood, stammering. Your Honor, I wasn't aware of... My client may have been under extreme emotional duress, he attempted. Extreme emotional duress doesn't involve premeditated fabrication of evidence, Mr. Hurst. Judge Kepler's voice was ice. She turned to Laura. Ms. Hayes, I'm asking you directly. Do you have an explanation? She repeated. Laura opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands trembled, not with fear this time, but with the realization that she'd been caught. She looked at Hurst desperately. He had nothing. Judge Kepler sat back, her expression hardening. This is one of the most disturbing cases of fraud and perjury I've encountered in 20 years on the bench. Ms. Hayes, you have not only falsely accused your husband of a serious crime, you've wasted the time and resources of law enforcement, this court, and endangered an innocent man's freedom and reputation, she stated firmly. She paused, letting the weight settle. The restraining order is dismissed. The divorce filing is dismissed with prejudice. All claims against Mr. Hayes are dismissed. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the district attorney for criminal charges. Fraud, perjury, filing a false police report, and conspiracy. I will also be recommending that Mr. Derek Mallory be investigated as a co-conspirator, she declared. Laura's face crumpled. Not with genuine emotion, but with the realization that she'd lost. Completely. Judge Kepler turned to me. Mr. Hayes, you are free to return to your home and your life. I apologize on behalf of this court that you were subjected to this ordeal, she said. I nodded. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stood, shook Lily's hand, and walked out of that courtroom. Behind me, Laura stayed seated, head in her hands, Hurst whispering urgently beside her. I didn't look back. Outside, Matthew was waiting by his truck. He clapped my shoulder, said nothing. We drove back to his place in silence. Justice didn't taste sweet. It tasted like freedom. The house felt different when I walked back inside 3 days later. Not foreign, but not quite familiar either. It was mine again, legally, physically, but it carried the weight of everything that had happened within its walls. I walked through each room slowly. Laura had changed things. New curtains in the living room. Furniture rearranged. My favorite chair moved to the garage. Small acts of possession, erased now. I left the cameras in place. Not out of paranoia, but practicality. I'd learned the value of documentation. Some lessons don't fade. The district attorney moved quickly. Laura and Derek were both charged. Laura with fraud, perjury, filing a false police report, and conspiracy. Derek with conspiracy and aiding in the commission of fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. No plea deals, no leniency. They went to trial separately. Both were convicted. Laura was sentenced to 3 years. Derek got 2. They weren't in the same facility, and from what I heard through Lily, they blamed each other. The relationship that had fueled their scheme disintegrated under the weight of its own lies. I didn't attend the sentencing. I'd already gotten what I needed. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into projects, took on extra responsibilities, rebuilt routines that had been shattered. My coworkers stopped asking questions. Life moved forward. Matthew checked in regularly. "You doing okay, brother?" he'd ask. "Yeah," I'd tell him. And I meant it. A few months after the trial, I met someone. Her name is Claire. She's a project architect, 42, divorced with no kids. We met at a construction, industry networking event, started talking about design flaws in commercial builds, ended up getting coffee. It's been slow, deliberate. She knows what happened, I didn't hide it, and she appreciated the honesty. "You handled it the right way," she said one evening over dinner. "You didn't let anger make you stupid." I smiled. "A friend told me the same thing," I replied. "We're taking it slow. No rushing, no assumptions, just 2 people figuring out if there's something worth building." I still think about Laura sometimes. Not with anger, but with a strange detachment. She gambled everything on a lie and lost. That's not my burden to carry anymore. The house is quiet now. Peaceful. I've started making it mine again, repainted the bedroom a deep charcoal gray, replaced the furniture Laura had rearranged, brought my chair back in from the garage. Small changes. Personal touches. Erasing the remnants of a marriage that should have ended honestly, but instead collapsed into calculated betrayal. I reconnected with old friends I'd let drift during the marriage. Guys from the construction crew I used to grab beers with on Fridays. A couple from the neighborhood who'd always invited us to their summer barbecues. They'd heard what happened, small town word travels, but they didn't pry. They just welcomed me back. "Glad to have you around again, Rob," Tom from down the street said at his 4th of July cookout, handing me a beer. We always knew something was off about her. I didn't ask what he meant. It didn't matter anymore. The legal aftermath took months to fully resolve. Lily helped me file a civil suit against Laura for damages, legal fees, emotional distress, reputational harm. The judge awarded me a judgment of $75,000. Laura would be paying it off for years, assuming she found decent work after her release. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the principle. Actions have consequences. Derek's ex-girlfriends reached out through Lily, wanting to know if they could use my case as evidence for their own complaints. I agreed. Last I heard, one of them was pursuing charges. Derek's charm had finally run out. The cameras stayed up for 6 months after I moved back in. I checked them obsessively at first. Some paranoid part of my brain convinced Laura would somehow violate the no-contact order, show up at the house, cause more chaos. But she never did. Eventually, I stopped checking the feeds daily, then weekly. Then it all. Matthew came over one Saturday morning with his toolbox. "You ready?" he asked. "Yeah," I answered. "I'm ready." We took the cameras down together, every single one. I watched him pack them into his equipment cases and felt something loosen in my chest. The surveillance had saved me. But I didn't want to live that way anymore. Didn't want to watch and wait and document. I wanted to just live. "You did good, brother," Matthew said as he carried the last case to his van. "A lot of guys would have lost their minds. You kept your head." "I had help," I replied. He grinned. "Damn right you did," he said. "Claire and I have been seeing each other for 5 months now. She's different from Laura in every way that matters. She's direct, honest, asks questions instead of making assumptions. She has her own career, her own money, her own life. She doesn't need me to complete her, she chooses to be with me. That difference is everything. We took a weekend trip to the coast last month, stayed in a small bed and breakfast, walked the beach at sunset, ate fresh seafood, talked about everything and nothing. On the last night, sitting on the balcony with wine and the sound of waves in the distance, she turned to me. "Do you think you'll ever trust someone completely again?" she asked. I considered the question. I don't know. Maybe. But trust is something you build, not something you give away. "I learned that the hard way," I answered honestly. She nodded. "That's fair. I can work with that," she replied. And she has. Slowly, carefully, we're building something. No rush, no pressure. Just two people who've been burned before, taking their time to make sure the foundation is solid. I still drive past the courthouse sometimes on my way to job sites. Can't help but glance at it. Remember that day in Judge Kepler's courtroom? The look on Laura's face when the footage played. The silence that followed. The justice that came swift and certain. People ask me if I regret the marriage. 18 years with someone who ultimately betrayed me so completely. Was it all wasted time? I don't think so. I learned what I don't want. I learned what red flags look like. I learned that instinct exists for a reason, and ignoring it is dangerous. I learned that documentation and preparation aren't paranoia, they're survival tools. I learned who my real friends are, and I learned that sometimes the foundation you build crumbles. But that doesn't mean you can't build again. You just build smarter, stronger, with better materials and a more honest blueprint. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on the back porch with a beer, watching the stars, and I think about the man I was before all this. Naive, maybe. Too trusting. Willing to ignore warning signs because confrontation felt harder than complacency. That man is gone. Not destroyed. Evolved. I'm harder now, but not bitter. Careful, but not closed off. Skeptical, but not cynical. I survived the lie. I reclaimed the truth. And now, I'm free to build something real. The construction site I manage is finishing up a new community center this month. 60,000 square feet, state-of-the-art facilities built on schedule and under budget. I walked through it yesterday with the project supervisor, inspecting the final details. Solid foundation. Clean lines. Every beam in its proper place. "Good work, Hayes," the supervisor said, clapping my shoulder. "This one's gonna stand for 50 years. I looked at the building, strong, well-built, made to last, and felt something like pride settle in my chest. "Yeah," I replied. "It will. Because that's what you do when something falls apart. You clear the wreckage, assess the damage, and start building again. Not the same structure, something better. Something that can weather the storms you didn't see coming the first time. Life isn't perfect, but it's mine. Honest, real, built on truth instead of lies, and for the first time in a long time, that's enough." And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.